What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, June 25th, 2020. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have a lot to talk about today. There's a lot of news that we've got to cover here. And, of course, in hour number 2, we'll open up the phone lines for all of your phone calls coming on in here. So let's getting right on into it here. Story that came out of hideoutnow.com. About how, everybody's cheering the founding fathers' statues falling, and yet they put up a statue of Lenin, which got a huge applause here. And I'm are we looking at a communist revolution inside this country right now? It certainly seems like it. I mean, if you look at the demands coming from Black Lives Matter and, Antifa, if you don't give us what we want, we'll burn the system down kind of mentality that's out there. And, there was a communist revolution in the former Russian Soviet Union. And it could happen if we're not paying attention. But something is definitely going on here. Now, Governor Cuomo is out there saying that protesters tearing down statues is a healthy expression of their anger and frustration here. Well, I don't know. There's a statue over there in New York Harbor called the Statue of Liberty, who's this European white chick standing guard over one of the biggest harbors in the country. And I'm wondering what Cuomo's going to be thinking when Black Lives Matter and Antifa head on out there with the crowbars. I think that would definitely be over the line here. So Tucker Carlson is out there talking about the vandals toppling monuments, and he says these people are idiots. They couldn't even tell you who Washington was. They're completely ignorant of American history. And that's certainly been proven in the last few days, where we're seeing statues of people who died to end slavery being torn down. And it's more than just a case of they don't know what they're doing. They don't care. White guy statue, tear down. Even the white guys that died trying to end slavery. And at the rate they're going, you know what's going to happen? These people want Trump out of the White House. They're going to put him in there for a second term because everyone's getting fed up with all this nonsense. And Black Lives Matter and Antifa and, the Marxists in general have forgotten a basic rule of revolution. You have to have the support of the general population to accomplish anything whatsoever. And yet everything they're doing is alienating their own cause. It's like during the American Revolution, what would have happened if Jefferson and Washington had gone into the colonial schools and started shooting children? They never would have won the revolution. They had to win the hearts and minds of the people first, and that's what's missing here. Everything that's going on in the streets, the tearing down of the statues and so forth, the anonymous, or rather the autonomous zones, it's alienating people. It's making them afraid. And people who are afraid of you will not support you. Anyway, up in Spokane, Washington, the police want to buy a $300,000 social distance enforcing helicopter. Apparently, this thing will fly overhead and it will basically scan the crowd below. And if two people are standing too close together, it'll blip some kind of an alarm at them. Over in New York, police are going to stop cars with out-of-state license plates and impose fines of up to $10,000 on anyone who doesn't stick to a 14-day quarantine after arriving in the tri-state area from various coronavirus hotspots. Well, I don't know about you. I mean, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, I wouldn't even bother going at this point. Just because I don't want to have to be having somebody checking on me to make sure that I'm quarantining for 4. I've quarantined enough. Thank you very much. I've really quarantined enough. Okay, I want to unquarantine. I want to be able to shake people's hands. I want to be able to, hug family members. Getting on over to NASCAR. We're making a left turn. Bubba Wallace has changed his course in a new statement on the emotional past few days. He's finally backing off, saying that was a noose hanging in the garage at Talladega. And he's basically saying, yeah, it's a door pull, and they all have them. but it was emotional. It was traumatizing. I was traumatized by something that wasn't really there, is what he's trying to say, and get away with that. Meanwhile, Al Sharpton is out there insisting it was a noose. It was a noose, and he wants the FBI to go back in and keep investigating until they conclude it's a noose. Jamal Hill stands by the suggestion that NASCAR is for racists. He's out there screaming, it was a noose, it was a noose, we insist it was a noose. You will believe us when we tell you it was a noose. Don't use your own eyes and ears and common sense. Just do what we tell you. Think what we tell you. Now, this one is not helping the situation here. 3 police officers in North Carolina have lost their jobs after accidentally, I'll bet, recording their own highly inflammatory conversation in which they are heard discussing slaughtering the N-word and calling for a new civil war to, quote, wipe them off the map. We don't need this kind of stuff getting out there right now. First of all, yes, First Amendment right and everything, but that was a little reckless to get on out there. What really bothers me, there's people on both sides of this debate who are thinking like that. White lives don't matter. Let's go get them. Burn the system down. Burn, baby, burn. Now, apparently, Donald Trump personally ordered the statue of Confederate soldier Albert Pike to be put back up in D.C. after it was torn down by protesters on Juneteenth. So hopefully that'll get taken care of. Now, up in Seattle, businesses and residents have sued the city over the CHOP zone. The lawsuit says locals have been threatened by protesters after an entire neighborhood was abandoned by authorities. And again, this gets back to what I was saying. You don't win popular support to bring about socioeconomic change by scaring the general population, and yet that's exactly what they're doing. They're going about this all wrong. I don't agree with what they're doing, but if they're going to do it, they should try and do it, correctly, properly. They're absolutely hoisting with their own petard here. Now, Mayor de Blasio plans to paint a Black Lives Matter mural right in front of Trump Tower in Manhattan after slamming Donald Trump for being a disgrace to the values we cherish in New York City. Not sure what values there are, but apparently the mural will be painted along 5th Avenue between 56th and 57th Streets, right in front of the president's New York high-rise. Okay. All right, let's get back to Michael Flynn. As you're probably aware, earlier this week, the appeals court ordered Judge Sullivan to dismiss the case. The prosecutors have walked out on it. Everybody says there's no evidence there. There's more evidence that's surfacing that's exculpatory. And Sullivan just kept saying, no, I want a trial. I want to send him to jail. And finally, he's been pulled back on it. Trump is asking when James Comey and his band of dirty cops will apologize to Flynn. I would say when pigs fly. These are people who don't apologize. They don't admit that they're wrong. I can just see them 20 years from now in some retirement home somewhere in a rocking chair saying, he was guilty. I tell you, he was guilty. Apparently, some new notes have surfaced from Peter Strzok revealing that Obama and Biden were involved in the FBI going after General Flynn, and it most definitely was not by the book. And apparently some of these new documents that are being unsealed suggest that Joe Biden personally raised the idea of investigating Michael Flynn over his ties to Russia. Now, there's a classic case of somebody living in a glass house and throwing rocks, because now it's coming on out that Biden was involved in the bribery case over in Russia. Justice Department finds new notes from Peter Strzok regarding Michael Flynn believed to be highly exculpatory. Unfortunately, they're still classified and rather under seal, but apparently the word is spreading that it's notes from an interview that make it clear Michael Flynn didn't do what they tried to get him to plead guilty to. So let's talk about Julian Assange. We haven't talked about him for a while, and he's sitting there in Belmarsh prison, I think it is. Waiting extradition. And apparently the U.S. government has expanded their indictments against Julian Assange to criminalize assistance provided to Edward Snowden. It's a superseding indictment. They're refiling. And basically it has to do with some of the leaks that Assange, put out there based on the information provided by Edward Snowden. So they're still out there trying to trying to nail them in the Espionage Act. And again, it's a complex issue. You have to prove that what was released harmed the military effort or endangered lives or endangered missions. The Supreme Court case regarding the Washington Post and the New York Times made it clear that the government can't censor information just because it's embarrassing, which is, I think, the territory where we're in right now. So, you know, I think we all are hoping for the best outcome for Snowden and Assange here. And Donald Trump has yet another book that he's dealing with. There's the Bolton book, which is out, at least in pirated form here. And apparently, there is Trump's niece, Mary Trump, getting ready to publish a tell-all book about them, even though she signed a non-disclosure agreement. And Trump family has managed to get a temporary restraining order saying that they would suffer irreparable harm if Mary's book is released next month as planned. Now, Mary Trump is not in a position to be in possession of classified information. So this is definitely coming under, I guess, libel and defamatory. She's under a temporary injunction while the court decides if it can move forward. The Trump family is saying no amount of money can undo the damage that will be done if the president's niece is allowed to publish her tell-all book. Okay. Anyway, the Mary Trump is apparently hanging out at a $2 million beachfront condo after being hit with a temporary restraining order to block her tell-all book. Going to air all the dirty laundry. Okay, and here we go. Talking about the international news, China and India open a new front of escalation with deployment of heavy vehicles and troops in Depsang. We were talking yesterday about how all of a sudden we were hearing nice talk from China and India trying to pull back from some of the escalation around the region, but apparently it didn't stick, and now they're moving some pretty heavy equipment up to those areas. China has moved thousands of troops, artillery units, and armored vehicles to a new area of northern Ladakh. Confirming the Chinese deployment, government sources claimed that in addition to troops, they have attack helicopters and armored vehicles to cover any eventuality in the region. So the war may be back on here. Meanwhile, both India and Russia are reaching out to Russia for support in a possible coming conflict. So Russia's playing host to the two sides, and hopefully Moscow can calm things down and influence the outcome of the dispute. The Russia-India-China trilateral foreign ministers' virtual meeting yesterday, hosted by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, was the first time that India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi had spoken face-to-face since the recent military confrontation, now in the process of disengaging along the line of actual control, the de facto India-China boundary. Oh, it's tense, but not totally without possibility of a good outcome here. All righty. No less than two separate reports in the South China Morning Post are warning of a coming U.S.-China military conflict, saying the prospect is now higher than ever, given that amid a rising number of naval incidents, including a recent near collision, communication channels used for deconfliction have fallen silent. We have 3 carriers patrolling over in that part of the world. And apparently there's been a steep drop-off in intergovernmental communications channels between the U.S. and China. That's always a bad sign when people stop talking. So the observed sharp decline in communication is also in regard to the military hotline between the Chinese and Taiwan defense ministries. No doubt the report was released in response to no less than 3 U.S. carriers patrolling the Western Pacific this week, including the Ronald Reagan, the Theodore Roosevelt, and the Nimitz. Needless to say, Beijing is annoyed, to put it delicately. At contention, of course, we have the Taiwan Straits itself, we have Hong Kong, we have the islands in the South China Sea. There's a lot for everybody to argue about if they feel like having an argument. Japan is scrapping plans for a U.S.-made anti-missile site. It's called Aegis Ashore, and they actually built one out there at Barking Sands on Kauai, and it's basically the spy radar and missile launching tubes from an Aegis ship, but they're installed on the shore. as a missile defense site, but it's very expensive. So Tokyo has aborted plans to go ahead with the Aegis Ashore missile defense, having deemed them both unsafe and too costly. Its alternative to the defensive option is quite the opposite, striking enemy firing positions first. So following deliberations at Japan's National Security Council, the government decided to cancel the Aegis deployment in the Yamaguchi and Akita prefectures. He said it had borne in mind the ballooning costs of the $4.1 billion contract signed with the U.S. to build, supply, and maintain the two Aegis Ashore sites during their 30-year lifespan. The central government also seems to have listened to the views of local politicians and residents who feared the Aegis launch sites would make their neighborhoods the target of a retaliatory strike in an all-out conflict. Yes, it would. The other side likes to aim at our missiles, or our missiles sitting in friendly territory. Moscow believes the United States could resort to a violation of the Russia-NATO Founding Act. Russia is closely following the U.S. plans to move part of its troops from Germany to Poland, following the visit of the Polish president to the United States, and will implement all the needed measures to ensure its national security. And they're following the announcements that are made in Washington regarding the possible relocation of some of the U.S. troops from Germany to Poland. So Russia's very concerned about that. It's just, can you just sort of feel that there is a major war coming on? I mean, to me, it's getting more and more obvious every single day here. All righty, down in Venezuela, yes, Venezuela's back on the stove, as it were. Venezuelan Ministry of Defense warns the U.S. Navy on its Caribbean act of provocation, warning to be ready for a forceful response. This was all triggered by a freedom of navigation mission along Venezuela's coast by the missile destroyer USS Nitze. I think it's pronounced that way, Nitze. Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino has warned the U.S. Navy against conducting operations close to the South American country's territorial waters. He said basically a U.S. Navy destroyer approached within 30 miles of the coast in a clear act of provocation. It cannot be termed otherwise. It was a clear, defiant act. Now, this is a very, very fuzzy area because everybody, will declare territorial waters. The United States only recognizes so far and then has a bad habit of sailing their warships into waters that are, shall we say politely, in dispute, where the U.S. says this is international waters, and the countries involved are saying, no, it isn't. It's our territorial waters. We have fishing fleets out there. We have commercial shipping out there. And no, you can't just sort of come and go as you please. So let's talk a little bit about the economic news here. Qantas is in free fall, and that's a shame because it's a fine airline. I've flown them down to Australia. But apparently the flying kangaroo is really in trouble right now. CEO Alan Joyce sacked 6,000 staffs and is predicting worse of job cuts would be still to come. All righty. Retailers post a steep drop in sales as they plunged by 37% in the year to June amid the coronavirus lockdown, while growth in internet purchases rose at the fastest rate since 2018. Well, that's to be expected with the coronavirus. The problem with the internet purchases is that a lot of those companies are also being hit by COVID-19. And how can I put this delicately? The reliability of things bought from, as one example, eBay, has definitely declined. And being out here in the boonies with a capital Boo, I've become quite dependent on eBay and Amazon, not to mention Walmart. And it gets frustrating when you order something and they'll say it'll be there, between 2 and 10. And you'll say, I'll bet it's the 10 days. And they'll say, actually, it's probably going to be about 20. Now, the other day we were talking about the fact that there seems to be a shortage of coinage in circulation right now. More about that when we come back from these words from our sponsor. Welcome back to the show here. And earlier in the week, we were talking about how there is a lack of coinage flowing through our economy because people aren't able to get down to their local banks and cash them all in, and they're just letting them pile up, in baggies in their kitchen and so forth and so on. And apparently it's becoming a bit of a crisis here, because apparently at Southern California Arco gas stations, they now have signs up saying, please have exact change ready, parentheses, coins. So they need to get those coins back into circulation here. Now, we've been hearing rumblings about a new stimulus bill being very generous, so forth and so on. And there's an article that came out of Investment Watch blog about a new GOP bill that would give each taxpayer $4,000 to take a vacation anywhere in the U.S. through the end of 2021. Well, that certainly is very, very generous indeed. And the first thing I thought when I heard that was space camp. They have an adult section for us, aging post-astronaut material, or Walt Disney World, or I don't know, rent a motor vehicle and tour the American West, something like that. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. When we open up the phone lines, which will be coming up very, very soon here, and you call in, and I wanted the first thing before you talk about anything else, where would you take that $4,000 vacation in the United States of America? I'm curious. I want to know where people would want to go here. All righty. Speaking of space camp, NASA is challenging designers to develop a lunar loo that allows astronauts to relieve themselves comfortably on the surface of the moon and in the microgravity of space. Isn't that called an outhouse? I don't know. Plus they had that space toilet on the shuttle. Okay, the Mars 2020 mission is delayed once again due to a contamination issue found in ground equipment. And they've delayed the launch by another 2 days, pushing the date to July 22nd. And the space agency said additional time is needed to resolve a contamination issue in the ground support lines in NASA's Payload Hazardous Service Facility. Now, according to the announcement, the spacecraft and vehicle have not been affected, and the launch is still set to take off at 9:35 Eastern Time from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Well, good luck. I understand they're definitely going to be looking for life on Mars with this one. And you know something? Let you in on a little secret. They'll find it. It's there. Okay. Another story, this one coming out of Russia today. Top alien hunting scientists create cosmic compendium of every place ETs might be found. And apparently the current list is more than 700 places out in the universe where extraterrestrials might be discovered. The Exotica catalog of 737 distinct astronomical objects includes every known type of celestial object, big, small, truly massive, that the scientists don't understand and those with which they're already familiar. So basically it's a one of everything list they're putting together. And I think, yeah, but isn't it really kind of a wild guess? Let's go find out. They're saying this could be here, this could be there. Let's go find out. Anyway, apparently Roscosmos and Space Adventures have been cooperating in space tourism since 2001, when the first space tourist, Dennis Tito, went into orbit. Since then, a total of 7 people have been in space under the space tourism program, and before you get excited, no, it costs a lot more than $4,000. But the first ever contract for a tourist walk in outer space has been signed. The venture is set for 2023. So RSC Energia and the U.S. company Space Adventures Incorporated have signed a contract to implement a short expedition for 2 spaceflight participants to the Russian segment of the International Space Station on board a Soyuz MS. So they get to ride to the space station and then they get to step outside. That would be cool. If I had that kind of money, I'd do that. Another story, this one coming out of Russia today. Alien life could exist in vast salty ocean inside Jupiter's icy moon, Europa. We've been hearing about this for a long time. That Europa probably has liquid water underneath its hard shell. And it probably does. And it could quite easily have life on there. But why are we talking about going to places that are going to be difficult to get to? Let's go back to Mars with a microscope and settle this issue once and for all. Let's go back to Titan, to those methane pools that are right on the surface and easily reachable. And let's find out once and for all. I don't know about you, I get frustrated Okay, I was born before there was such a thing as a satellite, when it was all the realm of science fiction here. And now at my current AGE, I've got a satellite dish out back of this house that is corroded to uselessness. Now, that's a lot of time to have passed. And I get very frustrated all the time with, it could have life here. It could have, maybe, might be over there. Let's find out. That's what NASA's supposed to be about. Let's go find out. Let's boldly go where nobody has gone before. We're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines a little bit early today. We got people already waiting online here. Before we get to the phone calls, though, getting on back to NASA, NASA is inviting you to explore Mars through images of the red planet taken by Curiosity to train its AI algorithm by labeling rocks and surface features as you go. And they're basically crowdsourcing this program. It's known as AI for Mars, and it's designed to improve an artificial intelligence algorithm that will help future Martian rovers move across the planet's surface. I would love to see them go back to that spot where they had what was called the crab, and nobody really knows what it was, but the image was taken and downloaded to Earth, and by the time they realized there was something very weird about this picture, I guess Curiosity had gone out of range. But I would have gone back and taken a look and said, what the heck is that? Very weird thing. All right, let's start taking phone calls here from Mike in Kentucky. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, that was a loud burst of static. I've been about in the last 6 months or so. I think I read some story, and I'm wondering if I know your opinion about the Big Bang is basically religion disguised as science.
Yes.
And the age of the universe, do you think that's even a valid concept then? 11.8 billion years or something?
No, I don't think it's a valid concept at all because, first of all, any scientist, any physicist will tell you matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change one form to another. So the idea is that there may actually be no beginning to the universe or end. And I know it's a very difficult concept for us mere mortals to take in. But, in fact, it was just, I think this last week, they found another object further out, and they said, well, we guess the universe has to be that much older. But I think as they build larger telescopes, and especially when they get the 10-meter scope finished on top of Mauna Kea, they're going to look out there and say, oh, wow, look at all that stuff way, way out there. I guess the universe must be a lot older. But it could simply loop back on itself endlessly.
Well, I think Einstein said that if you travel in a straight line far enough, you'd come back to the same point.
Yes.
I think Carl Sagan's Cosmos might have touched on that, but and I've been kind of watching this cosmology theorizing for a number of decades, not as long as you. But the latest thing that I read was that the thinking now from some of these evolutionary biologists is that we are actually way early, and that the universe, I guess some recent research into dark matter or something, suggests that the age of the universe may go beyond 300 trillion years. And so
yes.
We're not in the most best Goldilocks spot in the, I think their thinking is that red giants would be the most stable place for life to evolve in a Goldilocks spot planet.
Yes.
As we know it or not. And of course, recently I'd read some conjecture that we may not be from the galaxy Milky Way, because the University of Virginia did a infrared night sky study and showed that there's 3 mini galaxies right now being absorbed into the Milky Way.
That's
and we
true.
just happen to be right where the Sagittarius mini galaxy is merging with the Milky Way.
Yes.
And the odds of that are pretty thin. So the spot that we're in right now is probably not as quiet as it might have been, a billion years ago. If we were part of a mini galaxy, it wouldn't be as noisy as the Milky Way, so we wouldn't have all these potential, gamma ray bursts or whatever happened that may have caused that Banda H tsunami back in 2004 and stripped off a bunch of the upper atmosphere or something. I'm sure you remember that. There was a lot of theories about what that did, gravity waves and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know if you'd read that particular perspective.
Well, you know, eventually swallow the Andromeda galaxy.
Yeah, it's whatever, hundreds of, is that what, 40 million years from now? I can't remember.
Well, probably more than that, because the Andromeda is 2.5 million light years away from us. So we've got a little while to wait. Don't stay up tonight.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not. See ya.
Okay, I think he just said goodbye, and we're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Mark, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, how's it going, Mike? Who do you say is offering the $4,000?
This was an article where apparently the GOP is looking at a new stimulus bill that will give every American family $4,000 to take a vacation inside the United States of America between now and the end of 2021. And it's, you know, yeah. So where would you go? Just Fantasyland. Where would you go?
Most likely the Northern Rockies, probably around Montana, because that's a free state right now. You don't have all this nonsense going on there, or maybe Alaska. So they have to get rid of this guy Berkowitz, who I understand is.
Okay, well, this isn't a lifestyle change. This isn't a lifestyle change. This is just a vacation. You're going to go. You're going to do something. You're going to come back.
Yeah, the Rockies, Northern Rockies, or Alaska.
Okay, which I don't disagree with. I think it's a beautiful country up there. You know,
I love hockey.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing is getting back to this COVID stuff and all the so-called new cases you're talking about.
Yes.
I was watching when I got home. I put Ron Paul on, Ron Paul Institute. He's got a show every day.
Yes.
And he was talking about what's really going on with these things. A lot of these so-called hospitalizations now are people that are just getting elective surgery now, and some of them are testing positive for this confounded virus, and they're declaring their hospitalization for COVID rather than maybe to fix a knee or whatever else, maybe a torn muscle or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the things that's happening, okay? And yet everybody's panicking. The governor of the state I'm in now declared a mask order for the whole state. Good luck trying to enforce it, you clown. And I've already posted on Facebook that I'm going to vote every Democrat out on I don't care who the Republican is. I'm going to vote every Democrat out because it's the Democrats or anybody else that are pushing this garbage. They're autocratic pieces of garbage. And as bad as the Republicans are, they're not as bad as the Democrats. Of course, in Texas, with Abbott, he's giving the Democrats a run for their money because the man is showing what an incompetent buffoon he really is by caving into a lot of this stuff. This is all nonsense. The masks are not doing you any good. They're actually making people sick. There's no question about it. It's not even there's a lot of medical proof for that. Alex, InfoWars had something about it today. They had some expert on it, I forget his name, but and I watch Dr. Rashad Uttar, who I wish you'd have on as a guest. I wish you could get him on as a guest. Yeah.
Okay.
You know another guy talking about outer space? I wish you'd get Stephen Greer on, Dr. Stephen Greer. And that guy is awesome. And he believes that that what happened with Roswell is real, that they were, aliens, that they were actually shot down by a weapon that the United States had at the time. The guy is awesome. I mean, he's really, he really gives some good ideas. But basically, as far as the COVID goes, again, they're running a game on us. If we wind up closing down this country again and giving into this, it's on us. If we destroy our economy completely, if we never come back from it, and we become a third world banana republic, it's our own fault. We did it to ourselves. Okay, and if they're going to be stupid enough to go along with these clowns, let themselves be scared by this. If you have enough, Karens out there, thinking that so-called social distancing and putting on a mask is going to help you, well, we're going to get what we deserve then. I hate to say it. I know there's a guy from New Jersey that I'm sure disagrees. I'd love him to get on. Matter of fact, I'd like him to make some comments on my YouTube site. He knows what my YouTube site is. Okay, I wish he'd make some comments because I'll debate anybody. I'm not afraid to debate people. All right.
Okay.
I'm losing friends over some of the stuff I'm doing on Facebook because See, I don't cater to the left, to the right, to center, or anybody else. I say what's on my mind. And like I said, what's on my mind now is this is a ruse. And they're destroying this country. And that Bill Gates and his pack of Malthus-believing scum,
Yep.
they want us dead, plain and simple. Most of us, at least. Okay? They want us unhealthy first. They want us under their control. And eventually they want to put this, what I said on my thing. It's just, this is the last thing I want to say. They want the mask to be like the Star of David on the Jews there in with the Holocaust there before they were rounded up put in concentration camps. And these masks are the Star of David for pretty much all of us until they can get those vaccines. And the vaccines are the concentration camps. God forbid they ever get those things going, and we're going to. Now I know enough people, including myself, that there's no way we're going to let them do that to us. And I think it might trigger off, civil war. And I hate to be a cop trying to enforce that because they probably be, they think they, had it hard with this, all these rioting and things. Well, wait till they have to take the wrath on the American people. Even their own, that guy, Greg Anderson, even said it, and a couple others said it. They understand the truth. They will not get away with it. And if the military comes in, well, you know what happened in Iraq. And that's, you just try to take on American people with 400 million guns and hundreds of millions of armed Americans who know how to use these weapons. That's the way to do it if you want to either forcibly vaccine people or forcibly take the guns away. Good luck, because it ain't going to happen. And Mike, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I definitely agree with most of what Mark just said. And another thing I think that just about everybody out there can identify with is when you speak your own mind, even though ostensibly there's a right freedom of speech, in today's world, you lose a lot of friends and it can lose you your job.
Yes.
It can lose you your livelihood. But I wanted to point out that Vladimir Putin said a week or so ago, he said that the United States government, the United States as a country, began to lose legitimacy when, at the end of the 2016 election, when the Democrats refused to accept the outcome of an election, right?
Yeah.
And they keep saying 46% of the popular vote, if that's the case. Of course, there's all the illegals and so on. But Mike, when you play chess and you're up two pieces, like a bishop and a pawn or something, and the other guy takes your king, you've lost.
Yes.
Those are the rules. You take the king, you lose the game. You don't get the like it or not. If you don't get the electoral college, you lose. But at any rate, so. It also, getting back to Putin, back in the day, Bolshevik, the word Bolshevik in Russia means majority. Or
Yes.
some sort of iteration of that. Menshevik, by the way, means minority. And one of the great public relations gaffes of all time, the Mensheviks, which were a majority, took the minority as their moniker. But nevertheless, what the point I'm trying to make here is that they're not going to. We've talked about it. A couple of people here have talked about it. About they're going to go on from dividing us again, black, white, men, women, young, old, rich, poor. They don't want rich and poor though. Just middle class poor, not rich. Middle class and poor against and rich above everybody. But they're dividing everything we can. We're going to see a Hispanic trying to weaponize that as well. But I would, no matter what happens, and I believe you're right, that the majority of Americans, including Black and Latino and everybody, who don't think that we should defund the police, they should be managed, they should be controlled, and they should be accountable. But they don't want, they don't want the police to go away, God forbid, and they don't want the prisons to be empty, God forbid. And so I believe you're right that Trump, bad excuse as the president as he is, will probably be reelected, but that does not mean that they will accept that this is a perpetual thing, like Mao in his perpetual revolution, I think that these guys in the Democratic Party and the people who finance it and the people who, they're looking for perpetual revolution. They want to end the political thing, and they won't accept this out. They really won't accept this. Now that BLM has got billions of dollars in their coffers, and this is a genie that's out of the bottle, can't be put back. We're going to have to contend with their basically Marxist extremist, racist Marxist extremism for years to come, until somebody stands up to them and for what they are. But at any rate, they're not going to just go away. And if Trump wins again, Antifa's not going away, Soros isn't going away. The institutions that tried to usurp Trump and coup him out, the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Justice, they're not going to go away either. They're going to be fighting to not make sure that the swamp doesn't get cleaned out, which means the end of their institutions, right? Which we're already seeing with the Biden stuff, with now a direct link with Obama, with all this stuff with Flynn and everything else. We all knew that it was the case, but now apparently there's evidence. So their institutions are at stake. This is not going to end. No matter, you're right. The reaction to this will be that Trump will win.
Yes.
Unstopped, looting and rioting and polemics. However, that doesn't mean that this situation will get to end. It's going to get worse.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, especially looking at the aftermath of the 2016 election and the tantrums, and that's absolutely the perfect word. The tantrums that we saw being played out across the streets of America.
Well, yeah, and Mike, remember they were doing that during the election as they were beating up people, Antifa was, and so on.
Yep.
And beating up, actually injuring police even, and nobody ever went after them. And again, there's the link. Antifa, George Soros, Black Lives Matter, George Soros. Yes. George Soros, the color revolutions, George Soros, cover revolutions, Antifa, the CIA. There's a whole lot of links there, right?
Yeah.
So this is not going to go away, and we may be in the Mao Zedong state of permanent revolution.
We could very well be that way. Anyway, listen, Peter, I got to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. Back with more phone calls after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phones here, Keith Rogers called on in and says the $4,000 for a vacation is a tax deduction and not just free money being handed on out. But still, it's an incentive to get Americans out of their homes and out of the COVID quarantines and back out to the amusement parks and so forth and so on. So let's go back to the phones here. Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I'm going to come to see you, but you better have an empty room for 14 days quarantine for me.
You can sleep in the garage.
That's okay, as long as you got a rug on the floor.
Yep.
Hey, I can't go to, if you can't even go to Disney World, right?
Hello? Okay, I just lost the feed from RBN.
Nah, Dustin
okay, well then, let's switch over to Jeremy in Kentucky. Jeremy, are you there?
Hey, Mike, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, my vacation of choice would be Isle of the Palms, a little city in South Carolina on the Charleston, South Carolina on the coast.
Okay.
And my little favorite hangout is Windjammers. It's a little hole-in-the-wall bar right there on the beach. And in the past, Jimmy Buffett's just showed up there and played. Now I've never seen him do that. I was there in 2 different trips. I was in the Air Force, once in active duty, to Charleston Air Force Base, and once when I was a civil service contractor with the reserves. And so both times I had to stay in the city of Charleston, but I would always go to Isle of the Palms, man. It's a great little place. You go to Windjammers about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You can get a plate of crab legs and a draft beer for about $10, shoot some pool, go watch the college girls play volleyball, and then about 7 or 8 o'clock that night, they open up a live entertainment, and it's a good time. You ever been?
No, I haven't even been to South Carolina.
Oh, dude, you got to go. Yeah, you
well,
should do that with your 4,000.
I'm close. I'm closer now than I was over there in Hawaii.
Yeah, well, I know where you're at because I was in Owensboro, Kentucky for the longest time as an Air Force recruiter, and I took the fam up to Holiday World. That's my favorite little theme park to take the kids.
Yeah, that's
way
just
better
down
than
the road
Six
here.
Flags. Yeah, Santa Claus. And at the time that I went, about 15 years ago, they had a little ostrich and buffalo farm just right outside of the park, a few miles down the road. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
No, I'm not, but I'll have to take a look for it. I mean, now that the place is starting to open up again, I'm trying to find places we can go to. I mean, because, we basically moved here about 8 months ago and we haven't done anything except go out to the Lincoln Boyhood Home.
Yeah, you gotta check that out. I don't know if the ostrich farm is still there. It was there 15 years ago, but you can go and tour and look at the ostriches and buffalo and get a buffalo burger. At that time, you could. It may not be there now. The last time I was at Holiday World was 2 years ago. Got my little church in Kentucky. I talked into taking the youth group up there, and it's a really good park. Much better than Six Flags. Not quite as big, but more friendly.
Yeah, it's about 120 acres and it's getting ready to open for the summer season finally. And we'll definitely take a look. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go and take a break for station identification. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. We're going to go back to the phones, starting with Andy in Texas. Hello, Andy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, Mike. It's nice to talk to you again. I think people need to take a step back and take a look at what freedom is. Okay, we're looking at freedom. Look at what I can do. Look at all the things I can do. I can do all of this stuff. But they fail to look at the things that they can't do. And then if you look at it, there's millions of things you can't do. I mean, there's like 2.2 million laws on the books of things you cannot do. So when you look in the mirror, look at yourself and say, am I a free person? Can I do what I want? Well, here's the object of freedom. If you harm no one, and people have to listen to this because I've been yelled at, screamed at, and almost had my butt kicked for saying it. If you harm no one or their property, you should be able to do whatever the hell you want. And that's freedom. But in this country, we don't have that. There is 2.2 million ways to find yourself in a cage. And now they've released these people from prison, hardened criminals or whatnot, just to make room for those people who don't want to wear a mask. And not only that, they have determined that black people for Black Lives Matter or brown people for Black Lives Matter or any protester that has dark skin does not have to wear a mask because COVID-19 for some reason just passes those people by. Mm-hmm. But if you're not protesting this stuff, you are able to catch COVID-19. Is this not the most ridiculous thing you've heard of?
Oh, it is ridiculous.
Absolutely. And so if people are still on the hinge of what's going on, this is a ginormous takeover. The whole thing is fraud. There might be a COVID-19 virus, but it's not at the level that they're saying it is. And we're still complying with these people. This guy Newsom, and I'm stuck in California right now, so Newsom's really a scratch on my back. But these people they don't care. Do you think Newsom, when he goes out of his mansion and heads to Olive Garden or whatever after his day, he's put a mask on and everybody in his car's got a mask? No, none of that's happening. It's do as I say, not as I do. All right, these people are exerting their authority over us as though as if we don't have the right over our own lives. I implore people, take back your individuality. These people can't tell you how to live. These people cannot indoctrinate you how to live unless you let them. If we do not comply, this thing is over with. COVID-19 goes away. So what? A few people get arrested, but if everybody takes their mask off, if everybody just throws caution to the wind and goes out and does what life on this planet was intended to be in this particular moment, none of us were here to build this economy or build this society. Some of us did some building, but we weren't here when this thing was structured. But somehow there's some authoritarian figure that has grown in this country that seems to think they can tell us what color underwear we can wear, or what color mask we can wear, or what color hat we can wear. We're at a point where 1984 is a playbook, but they're going beyond that. They're erasing history. They're taking everything out of life that makes life even worth living. People, you are free. The only reason you're not free is because you listen to people's words. You're hearing people tell you you can't do this and you can't do that. They have no right. I don't care if it's a governor, a mayor, your best friend. They have no right to tell you how to live. And even if I don't live in a free, so-called free country, it doesn't matter. My life matters. And that's the shirt that should be out there right now. Everybody should wear a shirt that says, my life matters. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, or anyway. My life matters. And these people who are telling us that our life doesn't matter, it's this racist war is just going so far, Mike. They're going so far. I've been watching this stupid DJ. I got to turn it off. But they are pushing. Even if it's a justified shooting and it's a white dude who shoots a black guy, boom. And then we got this Smollett and we got this Bubba Wallace and we got all this stuff. They're race baiting us. People, this is a total psyop. There is no COVID-19 outbreak. Now, there might be. As soon as we all disagree with them, they might throw something out there that might kill it, which is cool. Are you ready to? Do you want to live in a world like this? Nobody does. Who wants to live in a world where you have no freedom of choice? I'm not going to wear a mask. And frankly, if a cop wants to arrest me, I'm going to fight it. You'll have to shoot me. I'm not going to wear a mask. I know it's a fraud. I've looked at all the medical repercussions. I've looked at everybody who studied it. It's not a disease that is this communicable. So, and I really feel bad for Dustin. He fell for it, but that's his problem. Anyway, there's no reason for any of us to even be standing around. If you can't do what you want to do, you're not free. Judge your freedom by what you can't do, not what you can.
I like that. I like that last part. Anyway, Andy, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. And as a matter of fact, Dustin from New Jersey is back on the line. So, Dustin, you got cut off. What were you going to say?
Mike, I'm only coming over if you lay down a rug in your garage and I can bring my Commodore 64.
Absolutely. I may fight you for that Commodore 64. I loved that machine when I had one.
And I'll bring my Amiga 500 also. With the one
I was an Amiga developer.
Yeah, man. Amiga was the bomb back in the day. And what happened to that company, Mike?
Well, it's still very popular in Europe, but it has not done well here in the United States of America.
Okay, I'm going to get on Mark with the mask. And Florida pauses reopening. Apple closes more U.S. stores. Don't you people understand, what this is? Because I don't and you don't. We don't know what this... to call this, Mike, that previous listener basically said this was a hoax.
Yes.
It's not a hoax, guys. I mean, Texas governor pauses reopening. Okay? I mean, so if I fell for it, Mike, I'm in the same camp as Putin and Xi Jinping and a lot of other people. Oh, Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran, right? And Modi of India. It must be a hoax to them, too. was the Spanish flu a hoax? You know, I mean, this is the problem. You know, Mike, I go back to when I called. I said the whole country should have locked down at the same time. Reopen, everybody wears masks, does their thing, because now what you got is different areas of the country. We're playing ping pong ball back. You know what I mean? We're playing ping pong ball with each other. Well, we got to quarantine people coming from these states. Remember when Florida, there's nobody coming from New York? Remember they got to be quarantined? DeSantis
Yes.
said.
Yes.
So now, isn't that crazy? Like the ball's in the other court now. Like, well, we're going to quarantine anybody from Florida, Texas, and Arizona. You cannot do this with something like this. You have to do it all at once, or it's not going to work. You can't all be on a different page. You know, if you look at, I said it the other day, like Asia, everybody's wearing a mask. Everybody's, yeah, I hate this word, conforming. You know?
Yep.
Like, I just don't understand why people think this is I mean, at the moment, you know, at this moment in time, it looks like it because of Russia collusion and stuff, but to just dismiss this, like you do not want to dismiss any virus that you don't know about. And I don't care what Alex Jones says, if you watch Alex Jones or any of these couple doctors on YouTube. You know, why would Florida pause reopening, Mike? Like DeSantis is a Republican.
Yes.
Or what about Texas governor? Why would he pause? Like, what do they know that we don't?
Dustin, let me throw a question at you. Because this has been bugging me all day. We got that report out of Oregon where they're saying that people of color don't have to wear the masks if they're afraid of racial profiling, which sounds a little bit, first of all, bogus, because how do you get racially profiled based on a face mask? And second of all, they're saying, you know, as Andy in Texas was saying, they're basically saying this group of people will not get infected. And to me, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
You know why, Mike? Because like with anything, like with the whole Russia collusion, it's all been politicized. You don't politicize a virus. And you know what's sad? More African Americans get coronavirus at the end of the day, right? Because of different issues, right? Like health issues.
Mm-hmm.
You got, I mean, we all know obesity, well, underlying conditions, obesity, vitamin D, C, this or that, all those are contributors. But like, at the end of the day, do not, Mark is, you guys are dismissing this. We don't know what's going on. You just don't say, I'm not going to wear a mask, they can arrest me. But don't you understand, if you don't wear a mask, you might not get sick, but your mother or your father, your sister can get, because we all have underlying conditions in that we're all human beings. So we all have, we have frailties, right? Like we're not perfect specimens. And this virus attacks different parts of your, you know, so, I mean, Steve Elkins can call in and put more into that, or anybody who lives in Texas or something, but I just don't like people calling and say, "Oh, I'm not going to wear my mask." That, you know, it's a fraud, or this is not a fraud, man. Like, I mean, what makes you think this is a fraud? And was the Spanish flu a fraud? I go back to that. People back then didn't wear masks, and also, Mike.
Now, wait a minute. That's not accurate. That's not accurate. People were wearing masks back during the 1918 influenza, and the only hoax aspect of it, of course, was saying it was Spanish.
It was an American flu.
Right.
But people were not, there was an American, wasn't there an anti-mask league also, right?
There was.
Kind of like now, right? Like, why did they not want to wear a mask? Did they feel like their rights were being infringed, or was it a hoax? See, that's the thing. Like, maybe it's like basically, Mike, it's a reenactment of what happened then.
Yes.
You know, like people just don't believe it, or it's not as bad, or their freedoms are infringed. Like, isn't the common good, like, I mean, we're all human beings. We all live in this country. We all live on the planet. But, I mean, like, do you want to spread it to other people? You know, nobody knows if kids get it or we just don't know what this thing entails. And, Mike, you know, it's only June. It's not even July yet. I mean,
yes.
You know what I mean? So are the numbers rigged? Probably. But to what point? we don't know yet, okay? And at the end of the day, you know, like I said, in Asia, Mike, I look to Asia, I look to China, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Japan to what they're doing. Because I hate to say it, they're kind of brighter than us at this point. I hate to say it, but I mean, I see them they've been through SARS and MERS before, so they know what this entails, okay? And you notice, remember, Mike, back when Wuhan, they had at their stores sealed off plastic going down between the registers, and there was a mist coming down. We didn't do that till months and months later. Like, we're behind the curve, you know, like in terms of, and I go back, Trump should have closed the whole country down for a few months, get that mask production up, reopen the country, wear a mask, be responsible, and you get back to business. Otherwise, what you have now, Mike, and you're not going to fix it at this point, is different states are doing their own thing. And it's not going to work in the long run because, you know, October and November is going to come sooner rather than later.
Yep.
And we can have you know, the cold weather comes, and that's another thing. We don't know. Remember they said the warm weather is going to kill it? Then what's the weather in Texas and Florida, Mike, by the way?
Well, I don't know. It's rather mild and pleasant here in Indiana.
It's just, it makes me angry. People call in, oh, I'm not going to wear my mask. Don't wear your mask for yourself. Wear it for your family member or something. I mean, if you go to the store, my God, how many people are in that store? You're in like an area where there's a lot of people. You know, I mean, like, you got to use common sense and Mike, before I get off the phone, I'm going to give my hands up to Sebastian from Sweden if he calls in tonight.
Yep.
He even said, like, the numbers are going up over there. So that herd immunity, they're not even near what they claim they were going to do. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know that. Well,
Yeah.
herd immunity is another way of saying we're just going to let a bunch of you die and, you know, we'll focus on those who survive.
But a bunch of you is us, Mike, like me, you,
Yep.
your wife. That's a bunch of us, you know, that shouldn't have to die to use common sense precautions. Mike, have a good night.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to switch over to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael, I had called about the nonsense of the depopulation agenda. Because you hear that bandied about by Alex Jones. Now, listen, if you follow Alex Jones, from the late 90s to 2020, all right, for one, the population in 2000 was 6 billion. Today it's at 7.5 billion.
Yes.
So over the past 20 years, while Alex Jones was talking about the world's going to be depopulated, they're going to wipe us out, he was absolutely wrong. As a matter of fact, he seems like one of those guys in the 70s who said there was going to be an ice age, as a matter of fact, or Al Gore and global warming. Meanwhile, the bullish secular Jews, like Julian Simon, Larry Kudlow, and Michael Medved, were right. They were right about the economy, about the Dow going from 2000 all the way up to what it is today, which it did. They were not gold bugs. They didn't say buy gold and go hide it in your basement. They said buy Apple or Amazon stock. So the people who mimic Alex Jones need to start, like, basically looking at him critically and how he's actually hindered the growth. I would say retarded a lot of the white males who follow him. I do. By his stick your head in the ground, the world is going to end, Chicken Little, dystopic future he's always carving out. Now, we might be living in a bit of a dystopia now, but we'll get through this. And with coronavirus, what the population, the death rate's now like 250,000 for a world of 7.7 billion.
Yes.
7.5. Yeah, so there hasn't been from either coronavirus or Bill Gates or Mr. Fauci and others who ironically are Gentiles who are conspiring to wipe out who? What population? No, that's the other thing. They never establish or say who's getting wiped out, or are we all getting wiped out? How is this killer disease they've set loose going to wipe us all out? Is it coronavirus? Is it going to be the new coronavirus? Or more likely, we'll get through coronavirus, nothing happens.
Yes.
I'm betting on. So, I'm not buying into any of these fear mongers out there. And if certain other areas of the world depopulate, what I find odd about these guys is, listen, if it's, people I know or people like me, and they depopulate, I'm concerned about that, like the decline of white people in Europe and even in the United States, because they're my people.
Okay, well, Paul, I'm going to have to put you on hold. Don't hang up. We got to take a break for commercials, and I'll come right back to you after these words. And welcome back to our show here. And a reminder that Republic Broadcasting is in a perpetual state of fundraising. And as we saw a week ago, the hardware is wearing out. It really does. So the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302. Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And of course, you can donate to whatreallyhappened.com through the link on the main page. So we're talking with Paul in New Jersey. And Paul, you were talking about, all these prognosticators about mass depopulation and just trying to figure out who is it who's going to be depopulated.
Yeah, and also what are our interests when it comes to why we think we have to do anything to maintain other people's population also. Because as I said, I'm concerned about the population of white Gentiles because I'm a white Gentile.
Yes.
But Africa or countries overseas, Yemen is having problems now. I just assume everybody can look out for themselves and live or die on their own. I'm not to be some kind of global nursemaid, nor do I want my government to do that. You know what I mean? To meddle around the world, keep other countries from being invaded. I really don't care. I want nothing to do with any of this. And that's the problem, is a lot of the people like in Alex Jones, they're actually selling the liberal impulse to save the third world, like Kipling's white man's bird.
Yes.
Kind of thing. Which Teddy Roosevelt advocated, to send out Americans to do good for the world and justify his armada and, getting cheap banana prices out of the Philippines and Central America, right? And rubber, right? Well, that's the cover, and that's part of the agenda. But still, I just don't like it being sold to me as some American, glory in that. And so, if the third world depopulates on their own, what do I care? It's not my business. I don't feel I have to regulate, and I don't see how many people has Bill Gates really killed? Has he? Right? Are you familiar with some of the claims against him?
Yeah, they're a little bit out there. I mean, yes, he pushes vaccines, and people have concerns about the safety and efficacy of vaccines. But it's quite a leap from there to say that Bill Gates is intentionally trying to poison much of the world's population.
Yeah, and likewise with Fauci, I just see them as incompetence, right? And in the case of Gates, there's a lot of money in vaccines. If people have to pay $200 a year for a vaccine every year,
yes,
that's like buying a cheap iPhone,
yes,
over time. So I just see it as a business end. He's being a typical capitalist. Nobody's dropping like flies. And on that note, thank you, Michael.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mitchell in Memphis. Mitchell, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, what's going on? Listen, I wanted to touch on this statue business. Here in Memphis, we had a situation with the Nathan Bedford Forrest statue.
Yes.
What I wanted to ask you, Mike, is that the statues are owned by we the people. Is that correct?
Well, some are not. I mean, national monuments and everything are owned by the people, but there's a lot of privately owned statues in front of like universities and such.
Right, and so it gets into this collectivist view, like, the vote took place and we voted for Trump. Well, 350 million people didn't vote for Trump. So when we look at the statues, they're maintained with tax dollars.
Yes.
They're owned by tax dollars. They're on public spaces and commons that are we the people's land. And so let's just, for the sake of conversation, say one group is the white people and the other group is the black people. I know there's crossover, but everybody's talking about white, black, and whatever. So let's just say the white people are saying these statues have value. We like Nathan Bedford Forrest because he was a general and he was a great thing. And we pay taxes and we want to maintain that statue in the public park. The black people, if you will, are saying, we pay taxes and we own that statue and we don't want to maintain that statue. We don't like that statue because it evokes, it makes us think of bad things. And so both the black people and the white people have valid positions. They're both right. They're both correct.
Well, where they're not correct is in the method of
everybody owns the statues.
Where they're not correct is the method of execution, because if the black population in your model doesn't like the statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest, they should approach it as a political problem because it was a political process that put the statue up in the first place. And they should go to their legislature and say, we want a bill to tear this statue down. And if the bill passes, the statue comes down and everybody basically goes home and you don't have a lot of violence there. Where I would draw the line.
When you go that route, I mean, this word ownership and properties, it needs a lot of discussion and review because I don't know if you own something, don't you have the right to tear it up or destroy it or keep it or whatever if you own something? But let's say we do. Let's say that we're going to say that the government.
Okay, I got to put you on hold. I got to put you on hold. We got to take another break for commercials. Don't hang up. Be right back. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Mitchell in Memphis, and I think what we need to do is clarify the difference between individual ownership of an asset and collective ownership. Now, for example, I own this Rubik's Cube. I went to the toy store and I paid money for it, and it's mine solely. I'm the sole owner. I can take it out back, smash it up with a hammer, and nobody would really care. Collectively, the American people own things like the Grand Canyon, which you're not allowed to knock down. They own those warplanes out there, and just because you collectively share in the ownership of the warplane doesn't mean they're going to let you hop into that cockpit and go off for a cat in a trap. So I think you need to keep that in mind. Those statues are collectively owned, and nobody has an individual right to do anything to those statues without the permission of the rest of the collective.
Well, but you don't pay taxes for the upkeep of the Grand Canyon. But let me say this. Let me say that if we go to the government and say we'll let individuals within the government, collective, we'll let them be the final arbiters of what should or should not happen with the people's collective ownership of statues. Then the question comes in, well, why do they get to be the judge? And then we go back to 1791 and say, well, because we, the people, the collective terminology again, we decided we wanted this system of government, consent of the governed.
Yes.
Well, the black people over here saying, well, what the hell are you talking about? How can you say we consented? We were in chains. You can't say we consented to this system of government whereby you're going to say that the government gets to be the final arbiter of this business with the statues. Maybe the solution is for the statues to go on a private piece of property. Maybe that would solve it.
Well, many statues are already on private pieces of property. You know, we're seeing all these statues of Jesus getting knocked down. Those are not taxpayer-supported statues. That's a violation of separation of church and state.
And that seems problematic. My concern is when things are in parks where it's this collective ownership and we own the parks and we the people pay taxes and so forth. And the emancipation statue, it is bothersome. It's kind of repulsive because take the color component out of it completely. It's just one man, some archon standing over another individual claiming authority. Like if authority was claimed to put people in bondage, in slavery, and now they're saying with this man here has the power to take you out of bondage. No. John Locke talked about unalienable rights. You have them from your creator. Humans are not responsible for that, should not be allowed to put people in bondage, and you don't need humans to take you out of bondage. So that statue is kind of repulsive, to be honest. I mean, to me, it's basically symbolizing that this man freed these people. No, those people should have already been free.
Well, you're missing the point I'm trying to make. Escaped slaves paid for that statue, and it's a design that they all at the time approved of.
Okay, well, do people approve of it now?
It's not up to them. They didn't buy and build the statue.
Okay. It's on public property.
Yeah, our public property.
I mean, I don't like this either, Mike. I mean, like I've said before, I'm an architecture buff, and I really shouldn't even say this on the radio. I'm just cringing because I don't want the antebellum houses to be targeted. I really don't.
No, I don't either. They're quite beautiful.
And Belmead and all these places. I don't want these places to be destroyed.
Yes.
But as far as this, you know, I do have this problem with we the people own this stuff, and when you get right down to it, it becomes problematic. You know, because it's kind of like, and what I'm saying is, one crowd is saying we don't like this. I mean, if I were a black person, that emancipation thing would really piss me off. I have to be honest about it. And I don't. You say, well, we need these statues to remind us, you know, lest we forget history and repeat it. Well, some people are saying we don't want to be reminded of this, for God's sake. And I guarantee you, believe me, we won't forget it. You know, so it's just different views from different vantage points from different people. And I just wanted to bring that up because I haven't heard anybody go, you know, very, very deep into this. Everybody's just saying, I like the statues. I don't like the statues. So anyway, that's all I had to say on that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind? Miles, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me, Michael?
I hear you now.
Okay, yeah, I got to say I enjoy the last caller's call and his commentary. And also, Andy from Texas had some valuable things to say. I don't think Dustin quite heard what he was saying, because Dustin was incorrect when he said that the guy did not believe and thought it was a hoax. He just said he believed it was, like many people do, including myself, there's a flu, but it's just some other kind of flu, some variation. And this thing still has only killed, I'm not sure, what, 100 and something thousand, is it, Michael?
Yeah, but that's still a big number. Not against the population of the United States, obviously, but still, you know.
Right. Well, it's what, 0.4% or something like it,
something like that, yes.
% or something.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's nowhere near pandemic status. It's nowhere near anything. This is just clearly exercise and control. Most people know it. So, you know, I don't think he really heard what Andy said well. And then he commented that, you know, he made a misassumption on what Andy said. And, you know, about this, the statues and all that, what if a group of people got together and said, you know what, we don't want these African museums going up. We don't want them because there's no other people than Africans in it.
You make a good point.
And then, you know, also, you know, we haven't enforced the rule of law except selectively. And had somebody took this Jesse Smollett lying on police reports and all this and made an example, this stuff wouldn't be going on.
True.
Just like the girl with the Duke rape cases. And I'm not saying that this doesn't go both ways, but it seems to go one way an awful lot more, where we find out that what we thought was going on wasn't going on. And if they had you know, the Tawana Brawley or whatever her name was, you know, the
yes.
Sharpton ran out here and everyone runs out here. If anyone runs out here for, you know, Caucasian people, David Duke or somebody, they're instantly, you know, looked at as a white supremacist, or even this Richard, I can't think of his name, that was running around here. But, you know, there is no representation for these other, for anybody but minorities at this point, is how I see it. I mean, the Hispanics have people representing them. Even the Asians have people of representation for them. when it comes to civil rights and issues like that. And then my final point on this rule of law stuff, you know, it's just ironic to me. We can go halfway around the world and kill this General Soleimani or Soleimani.
Yes.
And we can go ahead and do that, but we're going to let some rap guy control the city of Seattle. I mean, where are these people at? Where are these people talk about, all these thugs and threats to freedom and intimidation. Where is somebody who's, like I said, if they can go around the world and take care of this General Soleimani, who is actually helping us out, and they can't take care of this guy here? I mean, this is reminiscent to me when the two 16-year-old Somalians were holding the United States Navy at bay.
Yes.
Just go ahead and just tell them, look, you got 48 hours to surrender. If you don't surrender, we're coming in with any force we need necessary. Any force that we need necessary. And then just do it. Because in my opinion, Michael, until we just reestablish, because it's gone at this point, until we reestablish the rule of law, we're going nowhere. You give the typical saying, you give an inch and they take a mile. Well, they've gone 1,000 miles now. And now It's just beyond ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. And it's a threat to all good people of any color. And I think we need to address it. Thank you very much, Michael. Have a great show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to John in California. Hello, John. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Good to hear from you. You're sounding good. Hey, the $4,000 stimulus, whatever it was, I'd spend it. I'd take Amtrak all around America. I've done it for many, many years, and it's great. I know it's government run. They lose money. But if they're going to throw money away on stuff out of this country and wars and that, it's a great way to let the public see America. I've been everywhere in the United States except in Florida.
Well, trains are cool. When I was working in Europe, I used to take trains everywhere that I could. Sometimes I had to take jet planes, which is, especially flying over the Swiss Alps is quite spectacular. But I did enjoy the trains.
Well, when I spent 6 months there back in '73, bought a U-Rail pass and went all over the place. And it was a great network, even before the real fast trains went in. But that was a great way to travel. And I just love it. Like I said, even in the United States, even though a lot of the routes from the old railroads are discontinued, it's still a lot to see.
Yes.
Primarily like going from LA to Seattle and the Zephyr back to Denver and Chicago from San Francisco.
Yeah.
It's great. So one last thing you talk about, listen to Dustin, he gets his opinion. That's great. But Paul, right after him from New Jersey, he had a lot of other things that made sense too. And as far as the statues go, like you said, why are they, there's some of them have been put on private property and they still want to go after them. But some of these are there, that, like I said, let's go long history. There's some that were good, maybe some that, don't, but, you don't look at them. The thing about the emancipation, is that in Washington? I didn't know there was a statue to that.
I have to be honest, I don't know exactly where it's located, but I knew the statue existed.
Yeah, I didn't know that until you mentioned it in this show. So anyway, but yeah, with the COVID, the wearing the mask, like I said, a lot of this is misinformation. You think smart, if you're sick, cover yourself up and stay home. But if you're not, keep your immune system in good shape. You should be fine, unless it's contrived and they want to increase this up by, where they spray something out in the air again, spray chemtrails again or something. That's the only concern. Other than that, Michael, thank you very much. Have a good day.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, good day to you, Michael. Another great call by Miles, by the way. A great call. Miles always got some great points. And listen, I want to talk to that one guy. He was talking about the statues. They should be coming down. Hey, listen, man. They're taking statues out of Ponce de Leon. They're taking statues down of all these Spanish explorers here in Florida if they could. I mean, Mike, this is absurd. It's off the charts what these Black Lives Matter are trying to do. Michael, we see these protests. We see this one black guy that's in Seattle talking about we'll burn it down. Can you imagine if David Dukes or some militia group would have said we're going to burn the cities down for allowing all these Americans, black and white, getting murdered by illegal aliens? Could you imagine if somebody said, every one of you sanctuary city governors or mayors, we're coming to arrest you and the militias, whatever, because he's allowed criminal activities by the thousands of people to get murdered? Molly Tibbetts, Kate Steinle, we can go on and on and on. But and that one caller was right about Jesse Smollett. Smollett is the one that started a lot of this nonsense. But Michael, let's get to the real truth of this matter. And these people got to wake their eyes up and open their eyes. They want to take down white Northern European culture at all costs. And Zog is behind it. I don't care what anybody says. Look at what's going on in Europe. Like the guy was saying, let me talk about slavery. There was indentured slaves, and most of them were Irish, my friends. For 40, 50 years before the blacks came here, there was Irish slaves. And there was slavery in England. It was called merchant slaves, where the people had no money, so they had to be in houses, being slaves in houses, and they were white. They had nothing to do with black. The Arabs have been slaving the blacks for 1,000 years, the Arabs. So, all this crap about the white man did this. Well, no, the English actually didn't do as much as the Brazilian, Portuguese, or the Spanish in Central and South America. We don't hear about that. We only hear about what the English did, or the Dutch. Well, the Germans never owned slaves. The Russians never owned slaves. Those are white European or white Caucasian people. They didn't have slaves. Yeah, here in the United States. But listen, Mike, let's tell you the truth. In 1865, a black slave in this country that had no freedom was living better than a black who was living in Africa.
True.
Because they were in tribal warfare, killing each other by the thousands. And they had diseases and everything, too, in the white man. I don't even know if the white man, I don't know if they had diseases in Africa. I mean, come on, who's kidding who here? They have all these different tribes in Africa. They were at warfare with each other. They didn't know what the wheel was until like the 1600s. A round wheel. I mean, who's kidding who here? They didn't have a common language like they now have English. It's all about hating whitey. No, Michael, it's bullcrap. And we allowed the institution be. Look, Stuart Varney said it today. 90% of all these college professors are liberal. 60% of them are run by Jewish-controlled professors. Sal Lewinsky types. And they're raising these white trash kids to be radical. They're radicalizing them. It's ridiculous. And you know what? We're looking at a civil war if this don't stop. And Miles is right. We need to put this rebellion down now. Hey, we're the majority. We're not a minority. If we're talking a minority, it's different. When you're the majority of the country, and mainly the white Anglo males have got to realize their white females are the ones that stabbing them in the back in these elections. It's the white women who don't think with their brain, but they think with their heart and emotion. Listen, you got to talk to these white women and say, listen, you want to lose the country completely like Cuba? You want to be Venezuela? You want to be China? You want to be North Korea? I mean, we're looking at the precipice of this being destroyed, this country. And it's got to stop. And these radicals and these Black Lives Matter and Antifa, they got to be put down like rabid dogs. Because listen, Michael, David Dukes could never say, we're going to go burn up the cities like this black guy in Seattle. No way. That would not be tolerated. They'd have the FBI and the military going to get Dukes or anybody like that. The militias, these militia guys love this country more than anybody. They love this country. Most of them fought for this country. And they're being put down like they got cooties. It's ridiculous. And we're allowing this narrative to be played out by Zog and their filthy homosexual media. Who's kidding who? I watch it. I'm like, wait, this is disgusting what these pervs are doing to our country and our great institutions. And as far as the monuments go, Michael, why don't they talk? I haven't heard one Black Lives Matter or any of these women groups yet, except here in Florida, talk about us taking Martin Luther King statue down. Boy, I would love to see that. I'd like to see 20 ropes on an MLK statue and pull that down. What would happen then?
That would start a fight. Anyway, listen, Tom, I gotta let you go here. Sorry, we got to take a break for commercials. We got callers waiting on the line. One more segment in today's show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. Last segment of our program today. Let's go to the phones to Don in Arizona. Don, thank you for waiting. What's on your mind today?
Oh, Mike, Dustin always talks about Asia. Dustin is on the mask. He's giving everybody his laying down the law. You have to wear a mask, which is an irritating thing about Dustin. He always gives his advice. Nobody else does, right? Very seldom. Like this guy that was talking about Andy that was talking about he's never going to wear a mask. Okay,
Yeah.
he gave his little talk. It was a good little talk, but he didn't never say, Dustin, you can't wear a mask, right?
Yep.
That's the way Dustin is. He barks out his orders to everybody. And yeah, I get he's delusional. He thinks people are actually waiting to see what Dustin's going to say so I can comply with his order today. Because every day he gets some kind of advice. But as far as Japan, it's very crowded. And in fact, we had a big chat, an extensive chat about that. That's the reason they wear masks, because it's so unbelievably crowded. You get jammed. There's guys, their job is to jam people in the subway cars at rush hour. And I was talking to a Japanese girl online, and she said, yeah, in fact, I got jammed in so bad one time I had broken ribs. You know, so it's something like, that's the reason they wear masks. But Japan did not shut down. Japan actually had a modified, and I talked to her a long time about the COVID deal. They have a modified Swedish model. They didn't close down their stores and restaurants. They have some precautions. You know, you can go to a restaurant. You're not going to wear a mask, obviously, when you're eating. But the thing about it is, it's not a law. See, it's not a law. Like your other guy from Arizona that said, you know, he was not. You don't have to wear a mask if you just tell him you have a medical condition. So
Yeah.
it's not a law that you have to wear a mask. You know, so Dustin has no business trying to tell people if he's angry that, well, that's just tough. Nobody cares if Dustin's angry or not. Really, nobody gives a damn about Dustin at all, period. That's all I got to say, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We forgot to go back to Bobby in Florida here. And Bobby, you want to finish up?
Yeah, Mike. I'm here in Florida, and I tell you how hot it is. I just seen the devil walking out of 7-Eleven with a super Slurpee. Okay, it's hot.
That's
it's
hot.
Always hot here.
That's hot.
But my friend, he works at the hospital here. His mother works at a doctor's office. I think I told you this before. He doesn't see all these cases of anything. Just people don't have it. They even built 2 special big rooms. They probably spent $1 million on at the hospital here, and they tore them out. They were like oxygen chambers or something.
Yeah.
So, and the sheriff here in this county, he's not going to endorse. They just now passed the law today where you have to wear a mask going into a store. There's also a loophole. If you're drinking a soda or something or water, they can't make you put it on your face. I put mine below my nose. But yeah, that, and you know, the whole slavery thing, the whole communism, you know, growing up in school, I always had these teachers that would say, you know, communism is not a bad thing on paper, and communism this, and you know, I think they've been teaching this for a long time. This is back in the 70s. I had a teacher I was learning about this stuff in the 5th grade, and I picked up a Life magazine that showed all these bodies, and it was Cambodia, this Pol Pot guy. I was learning about that, and I took it into my class, and I brought it up, and I made
Bobby,
her so
I
mad.
am really sorry. I have to cut you off. We've hit the end of the program. Okay. Call back in tomorrow, and we'll finish up this discussion. Anyway, stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We need all the help that we can get right now. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.